Hello my dear church boys and welcome back to yet another episode of St. Robert's Day Game and Dating Podcast. And this time we're talking about the best locations for day game trips in Europe for summer 2024. Sure, we always have the typical popular cities like Warsaw, Budapest, Prague, Belgrade, but there are a bunch of other locations to consider. For example, Vienna, Lisbon, and a few places in the Northern Europe. If all you wanted is a list of places to check out, I just gave it to you. But if you want to understand the pros and cons of each place, the types of women you'll meet at each of the cities, and understand which of these locations is the best for you depending on what you're looking for, where you've already been, what's your budget, etc. We'll talk about all of that in this podcast episode. I've been coaching day game full-time for more than half a decade. I've coached all over Europe, in a bunch of places in North America, in Latin America. I've coached in almost all of the locations we're going to be looking at in today's podcast episode, and I've made videos and podcast episodes about these locations as well. The good news when you're choosing your next day game trip location is that texting and dating is actually 90% the same regardless of where you do it. The fundamentals still work. So if you are going on a trip and you want to make sure more of your numbers turn into dates and more of your dates turn into something in your bedroom, then make sure you check out my free texting and dating guides on daygamecourses.com. And now let's start talking about the cities, and we will start with the typical cities that everyone knows, like Warsaw, Budapest, Prague, and Belgrade. Let's start with Warsaw. What is the average day gamer looking for when he's planning his next trip? Probably many beautiful girls, so beautiful girls and volume, that's number one. Girls that are receptive to day game, and a place that's probably affordable on a cheaper end. Warsaw has all three of these, and because of that, it has been the most popular destination for day gamers in summers of 2022 and 2023, so it has been pretty busy. Yes, you'll see plenty of day gamers around Zloty Tarasy shopping mall, but there are a bunch of other really good locations that most of these guys don't know about. You just have to play around with Google Maps a little bit. If this is your first day game trip, or maybe you're coming to Europe to day game for the first time, I would still say go to Warsaw, even though it's so full of day gamers. I've done several videos about Warsaw, so you can simply search on my YouTube channel Warsaw or Poland, and you'll find them. That being said, the link to the list of the secret day game spots in Warsaw isn't valid anymore. But if you want to ask about any spots in any cities that I've been to, then you can simply do so in our private community, where we have a bunch of day gamers from all over the world. We're doing regular, in-depth content there, coaching calls, infields, etc. You'll find all the details about how to join the private community by clicking the link in description. Next, let's talk about Budapest. If you prefer women with more curves, bigger assets, then Budapest is definitely a place to check out. What's important, it is also a popular destination for female travelers. That is very, very important when picking your next day game destination. Okay, all of this being said, if you day game on the main fashion street or the main shopping mall, you will see other day gamers, but Budapest is a big city with a bunch of other spots that most day gamers don't know about. Again, you can play around with Google Maps to find them, or just ask that in our private community. The biggest downside of Budapest is it's a known party city. It's full of stag parties and drunk guys from other places in Western Europe that go there simply to party, and they're approaching women on the streets left and right. So you will quickly realize that if you are approaching in the most popular day game areas, these women have been approached before, and it does have its consequences. I would say that Budapest is one of the most livable cities in Europe for digital nomads. If you're looking for a place to visit for a few months, it's a beautiful city. Everything is walkable. There are nice parks to chill out. It's full of beautiful and interesting bars and coffee shops. I love it both as a city and a place for coaching day game. Next, let's talk about Prague. A disclaimer, I haven't been there for several years, so the information here is just based on my research. Prague used to be the most popular day game travel destination in Europe by far before COVID. It had many solo Russian tourists going there on their first trip abroad. And as I like to say, there is nothing easier to sleep with than a solo Russian tourist. Because of that, very many day gamers were going there, and you could definitely feel that when opening local girls. It was still an amazing place to day game tourists though. After COVID and war in Ukraine happened, well, the tourism to Prague dropped massively, but day gamers still kept going there. You can imagine how that ended, of course. But an interesting twist has happened right now. Prague has always been a popular destination for tourists from all over the world. It has always been crowded with people, with travelers. And because of that, the price of accommodation has gotten to a level where the average day gamer can't afford it anymore. So what do we have? Full of tourists, not that many day gamers because they can't afford it. I do think that Prague right now again should be a very good day game trip destination if you can afford it. And the last from the list of the typical day game cities, we have Belgrade, a place that I have a love-hate relationship with. Belgrade is full of beautiful women, but that's mostly because they like to pay attention to what they're wearing, like heels and kind of princessy stuff. So you see a lot of that. That's great, but many people will confirm that oftentimes they do come off as fairly arrogant. So I personally have stopped going to Belgrade because I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, especially because if you remove the makeup and the princessy outfits, they really are not hotter than women in most of places in Eastern Europe. I think Belgrade is an amazing place to challenge your day game with very beautiful women who will very likely reject you. I have had plenty of adventures there, even a same delay, so it's definitely doable, but just be ready for some pretty harsh blowouts. But some guys do better in Belgrade than others. For example, I'm not really their type, whereas if you're a classically good-looking guy from the US or UK, I do believe you have better chances. The important aspect is that it's not worth going there for less than 3 weeks. You will go on a lot of dates to nowhere. You'll go on multiple dates that end with nothing. But if you do run into the right girl, you'll have some great adventures there. Serbian women are also known for having very strong frame and being very demanding in relationships. So if you are looking for a wife, I would maybe suggest skipping that place, but that's just my opinion. Maybe you'll like them much better. All 4 of these destinations will be great. In all of them, you'll occasionally see other day gamers, but that's not really a problem, and I would still suggest visiting them. And if this is your first day game trip or your first time visiting Europe, then these 4 are definitely the best places for you. I've done content on all of them, so you can simply search the name of the city or the name of the country on my YouTube channel, and you will see some videos and podcast episodes about these destinations. But if you want something a bit more off the beaten path, a bit more interesting, then well, let's look at some other destinations worth checking out in Europe, and these are the places I would be most interested in checking out for a day game trip. And if you want to learn day game with me in Europe this summer, then I actually coach in all of these locations, both the really popular ones that we have already covered and the ones that we're going to be talking about next. What's important, the ones that we're talking about next, well, I'm personally very interested in checking them out. So if you decide to learn day game with me there, the price will be simply slightly better. I'll just cover my own flights and a few things like that. But I don't normally announce boot camps, coaching spots in specific cities or anything like that, typically because I like to hop on a call with each student that I'm coaching to get to know them, and depending on their personality, their experience in day game and their taste in women, we usually pick a destination that will work best for them. We look at different options and then we kind of see, okay, what's the best fit. Anyways, you'll find all the information about how coaching with me usually works by clicking the link in the description of this podcast episode. And let's start with Vienna in Austria. Well, what makes a great day game city? You need beautiful local girls? Check. It has to be good for pedestrians? Check. And it has to be a popular destination for solo female travelers? Check. In Vienna, there are several great day game streets, many department stores in a city center, several huge shopping malls outside the city center that are also good for day game. I was coaching a student there in the winter in sub-freezing temperatures, and even then we had good volume of beautiful girls who were receptive to day game. After having been to all the popular day game cities in Europe, Vienna is definitely on the top of my list of more interesting places to check out. Next, let's look at Lisbon, Portugal. Well, it's a beautiful city with a beach and everything else you want, so it has very different areas you can day game in depending on what you want. Maybe you want them classy business chicks that are on their way to a lunch during their break at work, or maybe you prefer tourists. Lisbon has it all. It's great for pedestrian traffic, and it has a lot of people just exploring the city. Plus, it's a very popular destination both for solo travelers and for nomads and expats. So it's basically full of women from all over the world. So why isn't it a more popular day game destination then? Well, it kinda is for people who can afford to go there. Accommodation will be a minimum of €100 a night, in many cases more if you want anything that's not a tiny kind of box. So I think that's the only reason why it's not as popular for day gamers to go there, and I would definitely highly suggest checking it out if you haven't been there yet. And lastly, let's talk about some places in the Northern Europe. For example, Finland, Sweden, and Estonia. Do you like tall, beautiful blondes? Well, this is where you will find them. And I think Finland would be the most popular destination specifically for day game travel out of the three. Some coaches used to run bootcamps there. I'm pretty sure they still do, but it's definitely very far off the beaten path, and I think it's a great destination to check out. This would be my go-to place in the Nordics. Sweden will have less day game travelers because it's more expensive, but you will meet a good share of local day gamers there. The quality and quantity of women there is just amazing. There are several great day game streets there. Just be warned that the prices there are higher than almost anywhere else in Europe. Some things are even more expensive than in the New York City. But if you're not on a budget, I highly suggest checking out Stockholm. Again, the quantity and quality of hot women there is just incredible. And if you're looking for something a bit more quiet with a beautiful old town and a slower pace of life, then Tallinn in Estonia might be the right place for you. But don't expect crazy volume here. If you have approach anxiety and you tend to say, I'll open the next one for 10 times in a row, then well, you probably won't open anyone in Tallinn. When you see a girl in one of these smaller cities, you have to open her because the next one might come in 10 or 15 minutes. But don't worry, if you're not struggling with approach anxiety, you'll still be easily able to find 10 women to approach in your 2-hour day game session. Well, there you have it. Now, not only you have a list of places to consider, but you kind of know what to expect from each other, and you can understand which is the best idea for you given taking into account where you've been, what you've seen, what type of women you like, and what's your budget. If you have been learning day game for more than 6 months and are still struggling and you think, okay, this might be the summer where I want to really take control of my dating life, where I finally want to learn how to day game in a way that gets me numbers, gets me dates, and a bunch of wild adventures, then well, you might want to consider going on a day game trip with me to one of these destinations to get some coaching, but you'll find out everything about how that usually happens by clicking the link in description. Two important things to know are that you will always be coached by me personally, no assistant coaches or anything like that, and that all coaching is always one-on-one. Group coaching is a terrible idea if you have approach anxiety because, well, the other guy might be kind of doing a bit better. You will feel rushed. You will feel bad for having approach anxiety and maybe not get enough attention from the coach. Or if you are learning faster and the other guy is having approach anxiety, you might be slowed down a bit because of that. But again, you'll find all the details about it by clicking the link in description. And if you want to join our community with amazing dedicated guys from different parts in the world, me and the best day gamers I know, then check out the information about our private community, again, by clicking the link in description. Well, that's it for this time. See you in the next podcast episode. Ciao, guys.